and participating in the career webinar from the Lighthouse for the Blind. My name is Cheryl Cumings. I am my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the workforce development here at the Lighthouse. I am a Black American woman who is blind. Today, I'm joined by my co-presenter, Michael Martins, who will introduce himself in a moment. There are also two ASL interpreters who are on screen and will spotlight themselves throughout the webinar. I also want to recognize our moderator / host, Elena Baumgartner, and Elena will be checking to let us know if there are any raised hands or if there are any comments in the chat field. This is part of a series of webinars for people who are blind or low vision, deaf-blind, or blind with other disabilities. The purpose of the series of career webinars is to provide you with tools and resources which you can use to actively chart your career exploration and development. Each month we focus on different topics, and we will talk about things such as writing a resume, the use of assistive technology in job searching, interviewing, networking, techniques and things to do to succeed once hired, and we will talk about self-employment. Look for future webinars and join us. But before we go any further, I invite my co-presenter to introduce himself.
Well, thank you, Cheryl, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Martins, pronouns he, him, and I'm the HR manager here at the Lighthouse for the Blind. I was born legally blind myself. I am no longer. I've had several corrective surgeries, but I did live the first 24 years of my life legally blind, so I can certainly relate with the challenges faced by blind individuals. It's my pleasure to be a part of today's webinar.
Michael, I am so excited and so honored that you agreed to join this afternoon and to help sort of present this particular workshop. So the purpose of this session, right? Why talk about skills? There are lots of tools and ways to identify your skills. Today, we are going to talk about a few tools which are free and accessible. Why do we need to know what our skills are? We've talked before here at these webinars about strengths. We've talked about interests. So skills, right? Skills are sort of the next part of the way we let employers know what we bring to the workplace. For some employers, skills are the most important qualification for a position. As a job seeker, knowing your skills allows you to confidently answer questions such as, what can you do for my organization or company? What types of problems can you solve if you were working here? Knowing your skills helps you also to figure out the next sort of career step. Do you have the skills needed to move forward, or are there skills that you do not have and you need to learn? Knowing your skills, I think, helps you as you create a LinkedIn profile and as you put together a resume. As a person with a disability, I found personally that knowing my skills also helped me sometimes when I sort of, as I said, to be able to like recenter myself, especially if I had an interview that may not have gone so well. Knowing my skills helped me to take a breath, take a break, and to put aside that particular negative experience or interaction and to move forward with the next application.
Well, thank you, Cheryl and Michael here. The first thing I would like to do is define what skills are. So a skill can be defined as an aptitude to do something well. And that means a skill is an individual's ability to perform a specific task or solve a problem effectively, often acquired through training, education, and/or practice. Skills can be grouped into a few categories. First, there's technical skills, such as data analysis, using specific production equipment, computer programming languages, cooking, bookkeeping, graphic design, writing, using point of sale equipment, also, for example. And these are specific and measurable skills, which are often gained through education and training. Then there's also soft skills. That's another category. And these skills are sometimes called personal skills or work readiness skills. And they include things such as being able to communicate well, starting work on time, following through on tasks, teamwork, and problem solving. And then there's two additional categories I'd like to mention. First, there's transferable skills, or abilities applicable across various roles and industries. Then there's knowledge-based skills, understanding concepts and theories related to a subject or profession. And I mentioned these two latter skills groups because they are additional ways of categorizing your technical and soft skills. And knowing your transferable skills and the areas in which you are knowledgeable or a subject expert is important as you consider a promotion, a transfer from one department to another, or if you're applying for a position that's in a different career path or in a different industry. For example, if you've worked for a few years as a machinist and now you want to move into purchasing, or if you're staying in the same industry, your transferable skills may be an understanding of the products needed, the knowledge of high quality product components, maybe math skills or computer skills, being a quick learner, and great customer service abilities.
Yeah, so absolutely. I love that. So sort of defining and talking about why we're here. And we're going to take a little pause and we really would like to invite you, um, our attendees, to share with us sort of your experience of thinking about and trying to identify your skills. If anybody would like to raise their hand, we'd love to hear from you.
left parent 7 right parent tab selected A.
I gotta say, there are no wrong answers. It's all about you.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So
Maybe I
maybe,
could take an opportunity to share a past experience I've had.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
Many years ago, while applying for a job, I was reading the essential job functions in the job announcement. And, one of them was to have solid knowledge of the Microsoft suite,
Right.
right? Word, Excel, Outlook, all of that. And I felt confident that I had decent knowledge of the Microsoft suite. And then during the interview, the interviewer said to me, well, the successful candidate here will be at a level 2 Excel user. And I knew in my heart of hearts that I really would probably be best classified as an XL1 level user,
Mm-hmm.
but I really wanted this job, and so I may have embellished a little bit and said, "Oh, I'm your guy. I can do that. I can do it." By gosh, after that interview ended and I went home, I was online jumping on every Excel tutorial I could to brush up my skills and get to that level 2 so that I had possessed that skill. And, I guess the point I make there is it's really important to be honest with yourself about your skills, especially when applying for jobs.
Right. Yeah. And so actually that's a perfect segue because we're going to talk first, we're going to talk about three tools. And the first one I'm calling the easiest tool because I think this is the one that in a way just sort of gets you in the habit of thinking about like how to determine or figure out what your skills are. So now that we know like what a skill is, the issue is like how do we begin identifying our particular skills? The first tool we want to discuss is the um, is from the book What Color Is Your Parachute? Old book, but really sort of seminal and fundamental to the career exploration and development field. Um, so this is a great tool because it is, as I said, easy to do and based on the concept that if we are someplace, we naturally or generally move towards the people who are doing things we want to do. So the way this works is let us begin by sort of imagining we are at a party and there are 6 groups of people at the party. Once you know about the 6 groups, the aim is to identify the 3 groups you would choose to spend your time with. And as you sort of think about the groups, you list them in preference, just one being the one you would prefer, 2, and then 3. So this is how it works. So let's talk about, imagine you've walked in the door and you see the first group right there. And so the people who are in this first group, group 1, they're athletic or mechanical. They have athletic or mechanical abilities. People in this group prefer to work with objects, machines, tools, plants, or animals, and they like to do things outdoors. So members of the group work with software and hardware. They're really good at diagnosing things. They like using tools and they like building sort of their own machines. You turn around and you find group 2. So members of group 2 are people who like to observe, sort of learn, investigate, analyze, evaluate, or solve problems. You still want to know about the other groups, so you keep walking, and then you come across people at the party who are in group 3. So members of this group are people who are artistic, innovative, and have sort of intuitional abilities. Members of this group like to work in unstructured situations using their imagination or creativity. Michael.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you, Cheryl. And
Sure.
now we're going to continue on and we're going to turn that corner and go to group 4. And members of this group are people who like to work with people to inform, enlighten, help, train, develop, cure, and are skilled with words. And as we continue walking, we find group 5. And group 5 is made up of people who like to work with people, influencing and persuading. These members are performing more leading or managing for organization goals or for economic gain. And then as we take the last turn, we see group 6. And members of this group are people who like to work with data and clerical or have numerical abilities, carrying things out in detail or following through on others' instructions. So, Cheryl, after hearing those 6 groups, which do you think you would choose first?
Yeah, no. This is tough, right? Because you, I don't know. Well, except group one. I I know I'm not athletic necessarily, and I'm not mechanical, so I wouldn't do that one. Um, but so I think I would actually choose group four.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah,
right. So those skills are curing, helping, informing, training, and developing.
yeah, yeah. Those are I think things that at like a first glance, those really appeal to me.
Right. Well,
What
by
about you?
I would say I would tend to lean towards group 4 and maybe group 5, you
Hmm.
know.
Right, right.
I guess by making those choices, we have started our elementary skills assessment, right?
We have.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so sort of the way it can work is once you've identified which group, right, you can go back again and look at the sort of words associated with the group and start really writing down the ones. So maybe I wouldn't do curing, but, but I might do training, right?
Sure.
Um, so as you said, it's an easy tool, and I think it's one that's, you know, uh, gets you started, has some information that you can use, and sort of gets, at least I think, gets your brain into like, oh, okay, this is how I need to think about sort of what my skills are. So again, we would love to hear from you. Anybody who wants to raise their hand and tell us, you heard these 6 groups. Is there one that you would choose to go to first?
D left parent by right parent tab selected. Catalyst left parent by right parent tab E.
And again, there are no wrong answers. Uh, and we'd love you to help us out and participate. It would be nice to hear from you. Anybody who wants to raise their hand. Right. Elena, did anybody raise their hand?
I'm not seeing anything.
Okay. All righty. All right. So we're gonna continue on then. So this the sort of party game, that's the simplest, and I think a good way to get started. So the next one we want to talk about are sort of thinking about what are our motivated skills. So um in sort of doing this process, what you are doing is you will be able to identify sort of even more skills. Motivated skills are those skills you really like, prefer and enjoy using, right? We all have lots of skills. And as you think about your future and what you want to highlight on your resume, again, if you're being, it's a you have choices. I think you want to put down the skills that you really prefer to do and that you really want to keep doing, right? Because you're applying for a position, and hopefully this is going to be a position that you're at for a little while. So how do you identify those motivated skills? I think if anybody participated in the strengths webinar, you heard me talk about Bernard Haldane, a professor who worked initially with veterans and helped them to be able to translate their military experience into skills and civilian work. So this idea sort of flows from some of the work he did, and it also comes from the idea of the work from Richard Bowles, who wrote the What Color is Your Parachute book. So the way you start to be able to identify your skills here using this particular tool is that you're going to write about an achievement and or an accomplishment. And as you're writing, there are three things you're sort of keeping in mind, sort of what you did, how you did it, and what happened as a result. So once you start writing that, you are going to write stories that I said that, you know, basically describe an accomplishment or an achievement. And the important part here is that these stories don't have to be very long at all. The other thing is, I suppose the question is like, how many stories do you write? So I think depending, right? Because I've seen people who've said you can write 4 stories. I've seen other situations where people have been asked to write 7 stories. And I've seen other situations where people have been asked to write 10 stories. I think the important part is that when you get ready to write the story, that you have to be the main actor in the story, right? You have to be the person who's taken some action and it's resulted in a positive outcome. As I said, these stories, the other part is that the stories can be about any sort of activity you were involved in. Could be work, could be family, it could be community. One of the examples I was thinking about is, you know, let's say, you know, you remember a time when you were hired as a babysitter, and what you did is you were working with 2 kids and you figured out like an art project for the kids to do, and they, you know, so you got all the paper and the crayons and the material, you explained the project to the kids, everybody got excited and they sort of participated in the project. And I know you're thinking, what, how am I going to pull skills from that? But you really can. I mean, so when I hear that story, what I hear is somebody who was able to walk into a situation, sort of look around, do a little assessment, right? Figure out, right? And that's important, being able to assess a situation. Obviously, it's problem solving because you're working with kids and you're trying to come up with something that will keep the kids occupied during the time that you're there. You know, and who knows, maybe in your story you actually consulted the kids, right? So you could maybe translate that as a understanding of like customer service, like reaching out to people. So there are lots of ways that you can use these stories to help identify your skills.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Cheryl. This
Yeah.
might be an opportune time to ask our participants if they've ever used this process or a similar process to identify the skills, their skills.
All right, we have a question from Ashley. You are unmuted. If you could also unmute yourself.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Ashley.
Yeah, this is Ashley. Yeah, good to hear from you all. And yeah, I did have kind of a question about about the story thing and the comment. The question being is to work best toward preparing for, I guess, employment or interviews. Would I be right in saying you kind of want the story to be something you've done recently, like when I say recently, maybe in the past few years, and should this be kind of out in the community, something like a neutral, helpful project? Because I know some things to share might be a little controversial. Um, like say if it was something you did in your religious sphere, like that I'm guessing that may not be like the best story to highlight because not everyone maybe shares your same religion, which for me is Christianity. So that was my question there. And then in terms of have I done that? If I understand what you're saying
Mm-hmm.
correctly about like sharing a story and writing it down about your accomplishments to highlight, some workplace skills. Um, yes, I have. It's kind of like a free form journaling thing for me. Sometimes I do before like interviews. I'm I had some health problems but I'm gonna go back to look for employment. I did look for employment, and even at the end of the pandemic, like in 2021, I think it was. Um, I long story short, as I can't, take up the time, I know, but basically I had the interviews and sadly they were for community leader positions in the senior centers or
Mm-hmm.
community centers. I did not get those positions, but I'm glad that I had the experience of interviewing because I I always get anxious when do interviews because they're strangers. So
Right.
I think that just like the practice for me was helpful, and um except for one interview it went fine because like the person um the person at the end, one of the panelists, I meant to say panelist, not person, she kind of like, I'm sure we've all had this experience. She kind of questioned my ability to like use their database or something like that, because she doesn't know the abilities of JAWS.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I just told her, we'll see if you hire me, give me a chance, is kind of how I left it because I didn't know myself without trying their system.
Right.
So thanks for
No,
answering.
thank you for sharing that experience. And so the stories that you're actually writing here, these are not stories necessarily that you're going to share with other people. These are
Oh,
stories that you're writing to help you to like review and sort of pick out skills that you used in each experience. So, I mean, at some point, as you said, sort of you can certainly use them to if you're in an interview, but that's not the initial purpose of these stories. So these stories can come from any like point in your life, right? It could be something you did as a kid, something you did like yesterday, and it can really come from any part. So it could be if you're really active in your church or your synagogue or your mosque and you wanted to write down those experiences and look through that to help you figure out some skills. So yeah, it can be from any time. I hope that answers your question.
I see. Yeah, I think so. So you're saying a story about experiences. So it's more like a self-reflective thing more than to share with the public eventually.
Right.
So it's more of a, thinking back, what is my story showing, demonstrate my skills. Um, and yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Ashley, this is Michael. I think that you're right on target though, as far as being prepared with examples and stories that you can provide in an interview setting. I know that's been beneficial for me when I've had potential future employers ask me about my abilities to
Yes.
use a database, for example. It's always good to have something in queue, a good example of, a historical time where you were able to accomplish that task successfully, right? So, you know,
I see.
mhm.
Good point. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ashley.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, Ashley. And I think that was our only hand.
Okay. So Michael, you've been really generous and shared your experience. So I have another question for you.
Okay.
Um, I know through our conversation you shared about taking a skills assessment sort of test, and that once you finished, that they actually came up with careers that might on the surface look a little just different, but I don't know. So could you talk about that experience and sort of what were the careers that were recommended as a result? And, a little bit about like what did you decide? How did you decide what you wanted to do?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question, Cheryl. So this was many years ago. And at that time, I was a human resources generalist.
Okay.
Was newer to the HR field, and I was at kind of an entry level HR position. And I participated in an assessment that's called the WOWI, WOWI, and it stands for World of Work Inventory. And it was a 1 day long process, rather in depth. It asks you a lot of questions about your skills, your likes and your dislikes. And at the end of the day, they produced a report for you telling you what they feel would be good job matches for you. And, among the job suggestions for me was a park ranger or a human resources manager. And those are not similar jobs, right? But
Yeah.
for whatever reason, they did map me to those two possible career opportunities. One thing, while being in HR, I do not work outside, but I do love to work outside. So when that question was asked, I said, yeah, I love to work outside. And, different, through the whole series of questions they asked throughout the day, I just thought it was funny that they mapped me to a park ranger or an HR manager. But guess what? Here I am many, many years later, and I am an HR manager. So the test, the process was very thorough, and
Mhm.
it did end up producing really good results that I took advantage of and made that my career.
Right.
So, but I would say the one drawback to that assessment that I participated in is it was not free by any means, and it certainly wasn't very accessible either. So there were drawbacks to it. But I must say that's a great segue to discuss the next thing that we had here on the agenda, which is a website called Career One Stop. And it is a free, accessible skills assessment. And it was developed by the Department of Labor. And the skills assessment tool available on the Career One Stop website, again, is free and accessible. And those are two great, great things. So when you get to the Skills Assessment Career One Stop website, there is a link, Skills Matcher, and you click on that link and it takes you to another page that has a button and it's labeled Start Skills Matcher. And this is an online tool with 40 questions. And as you answer, the tool asks you to select the level of skill. So, for example, administrative and management. How much do you know about business planning and leadership? If you're beginner, you might be able to like complete a timesheet, for example. But then there's, skilled levels like monitor project process to complete it on time. There's also examples of expert level, like managing a $10 million company, for example. So when you finish answering all the questions, it ends up giving you the results.
Yeah. And I mean, before we talk about the results, could we talk a little bit about like some ideas around how you use these tools? I think, Michael, you and I were talking before, and even earlier in this workshop, you mentioned the importance of being honest, right?
Yeah.
Because I gotta say, um, the fact that you might have worked on one, and maybe I should just talk for myself. So for myself, I was like, of course I know business administration. I've been doing this for many, many years. And I was all ready to put expert. And then I looked at what an expert really should know. So I gotta admit, I've never run, not as yet, I have not run a $10 million company. Um,
Me either.
right? So so you're like, oh, so that's what that, right? That's sort of maybe what the world really means, or at least for this particular test when they're talking about an expert level. And then I had to dial it back to
Yeah,
sort of select the one that really like made sense.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And from where I was at that time, I mentioned I was a human resources generalist. Now I'm an HR manager. That did not happen overnight. Right.
Yeah.
There were many years, and I was fortunate enough to take advantage of several training opportunities and classes that gave me the skills, the knowledge, the skills, and the abilities to move up to the next level. A few years into my HR career, I was able to kind of carve out my job based on the skills I was really proficient at. Turns out I was pretty good working in employee relations and conflict resolution. So after a few years of demonstrating those skills, I was promoted to employee relations manager.
Hmm.
I filled that role for many, many years, as well as other duties and, other aspects of HR to where, and again, with trainings and classes and working with my peers and learning from them, I was able to get enough well-rounded skills that I was eventually promoted to HR manager. So it does take time and effort to build those skill sets, but it
Yeah.
certainly is possible. And it's a fun journey doing it too, as well.
It can be, yes.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, so I think one of the things that we didn't write, we like didn't talk about, but I just, as you were talking, it just reminded me that there are like lots of different places where you can learn skills. I mean, certainly, education, right? Going to school or taking trainings, that's absolutely important. But there are ways that you can use volunteering opportunities to learn skills. So, just be mindful that in as much as it is skill development happening sort of through work, and I suppose I should put work in quotes, air quotes. um, we can gain skills through volunteering, because there are lots of organizations that need volunteers, and I think it's a fantastic opportunity. If you are like curious, like, I wonder what it's like maybe to be a grant writer. And you know, I mean, there are lots of nonprofits that need grant writers. And so there are ways to volunteer. I mean, even like for your church or other organizations. So, please keep in mind that volunteering is absolutely one of the ways that you can gain skills.
Yeah. And that practice, I've always wanted to continue to develop my presentation skills because
Mm-hmm.
I do find that I need to utilize that skill within my job. And so that's a reason I volunteered to assist you today, because it's going to afford me more practice at presenting to groups. So why not take
Yeah,
advantage of those opportunities?
right, right.
Mhm.
And I think, I mean, that leads me to this thought, which is that sometimes we have to like accept being uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, in order to I think to move from sort of where you like what you know to what you don't know, I think you've got to be willing to risk. And I think it really is true. You have to be willing to risk um, trying something new. So just another thought to keep in mind. All
Absolutely.
right. Michael, did that spark some thought that you wanted to share?
No, I just said absolutely. I totally concur.
Yeah,
Getting out of your comfort zone is oftentimes the best way to learn new
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So, all right, so now I'm going to talk about the results, sort of taking us back to the skills assessment tool that's available on the One Stop Career website. Um, so the results are a list of careers which are associated with your sort of particular mix of skills. Um, the information about the careers include its sort of future prospect. Is it something that, as we think about our economy and sort of where we are and we think about the future, is it an option that will continue to be used? So on this website, it usually talks about it being a bright prospect or not. Um, and so I love this because um as you know, it can show you things that you may never have considered. And you can like go check it out, right? You're not losing anything and you might gain a lot. And you can check it out and you may decide like, yes, this is absolutely not for me. Or it could be you check it out and it sort of piques your interest. So when you select a career, you get information on the tasks, the wages, sort of reflect related titles. It also talks about um, uh, like education and like skills needed. So it is so it's a really informative um, information, I think. Uh, and coming from the Department of Labor, it also has those what are called job zones. And these tell you sort of the educational levels and you can play around. So you can say like, okay, show me what types of careers somebody with my particular skills um, may pursue if I have, like a bachelor's degree. Um, so it's a great resource, and I am so excited that it's free and that it's accessible. The other piece of really useful information is a PDF document. So when you're on the website, you can click and there's an option where it shows you sort of your list of skills, and it shows them sort of ranking from high to low. So high being, the ones that I think you show, advanced or expert, maybe skill levels in. And the really nice thing about that is that there's also a PDF document that's generated for the same information, and you can download that information and keep it. And why is that useful? It is useful because, as I said, it's showing you a list of skills. So it's giving you more words, more sort of ways of talking about your abilities and what you can bring to a workplace. And this is information, again, that you can use if you're creating your LinkedIn profile and or if you're putting together your resume. So we would love to invite you to raise your hand and tell us if you've maybe used this tool, if you've had any experience with it, or if you've used some other type of tool, or if you just have any questions about what we've said so far.
Attendees left parent, right parent tab selected. Panelists left parent, right parent tab E.
Are we seeing any hands raised, Elena?
Nope, no hands.
No. Well, I tell you, where does the time go? It's already nearly 10 till 5. So
I know.
I suppose, Cheryl, we're just about ready for the conclusion, huh?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Why
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
Well, everyone, as we wrap up, I'd just like to say again to define specifically what a skill is. And it's an individual's ability to perform a specific task or solve a problem effectively, and often acquired through training, education, and or practice. And we created this workshop because knowing your skills makes a significant difference to help you to build your resume and LinkedIn profile, as well as network and talk with employers about what you bring to their companies and how you can solve problems for them. So today we shared 3 tools to use to identify your skills: the party game. That's the process of identifying motivated skills, and the online skills matcher assessment, which links your combination of skills with careers.
So we hope you have found this useful. And I am going to thank Michael for taking his time and for co-presenting with me. This was a lot of fun. We should do it again. I hope you agree.
Absolutely. And thank
uh,
you for the invite and the opportunity.
Oh, you're so welcome. I also want to thank our ASL interpreters, and I want to thank Elena for being here and being our host. I also want to thank you for choosing to attend this career webinar. We are truly appreciative of you choosing to join us and choosing to participate. So I hope this information gives you another tool to pursue your career exploration and career development. So again, thank you so much for being here. We've got more webinars coming up, so please look out for those and join us. And we're done. We're but I suppose we do have a few minutes. So if anybody wants to raise their hand and ask us any question sort of related to skills, and we've got an HR manager here, so I don't know if you want to ask any questions around like job searching. We are open, and we would welcome your questions.
Attendees left parent, right parent tab selected A. Panelists attendees left parent, right parent tab selected A. Input search keyword search edit. Attendees left parent, right parent tab.
No, Elena, anybody raising their hand?
I don't see anybody raising hands.
Okay. All right. Well then, we are going to say thank you again for joining us. And next month, we're going to be talking about putting together a resume. So look out for that announcement. And if it's something you need to know, or if it's something a friend of yours needs to know, tell them about it and sign up and come and join us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
These left there, right there, tab selected.